Welcome to Fireside Giants, a featured podcast by Empire Sports Media. I'm your host, Alexander Wilson, and my co-host, Anthony Rivardo. Give us a follow on Twitter if you haven't already, Alex Wilson ESM, Anthony_Rivardo, and make sure to smash that subscribe button on YouTube and leave a review on iTunes. We really appreciate the support. Have some awesome stuff coming out. Training camp is here. A lot to talk about. Mostly COVID-19 related, because it seems like that's kind of the big topic these days, and whether the NFL is actually going to happen or not. Just today, it's Tuesday right now. If you're listening to this on a Wednesday or Thursday, there's a lot of players already opting out. And Anthony and I want to talk about that just to get started. But how are you doing today, Anthony?
I'm doing pretty good. I woke up this morning real early for me, tried to go to Chick-fil-A to get breakfast, and the Chick-fil-A at my mall does not serve breakfast, so that was kind of disappointing. So I just had a normal sandwich for breakfast, which was
They
kind of
do
weird.
that? They serve breakfast?
Chick-fil-A has breakfast from like 6:30 till 10:30 they end, and I guess my Chick-fil-A that's local to me opens at 10:30, so they don't even do breakfast. I think that's only because of coronavirus, though. I think they used to open
Oh.
earlier, but I don't know. Kind of sucked. So now I'm gonna have to go to the far one tomorrow if I want Chick-fil-A breakfast.
Well, what kind of breakfast foods do they even serve? Because I've never been there for that kind of event.
So I know about this because for one of my birthday parties, like a year ago, I think, and the year before that, I think too, we catered Chick-fil-A. So they have these chicken minis, which they have these little biscuits, and they put the chicken nuggets on there, and they're really, really good. Like the biscuit that they use is like amazing. And so I guess they just have a bigger version of that with a sandwich on it and then like egg and cheese. So it's just a breakfast sandwich, but Chick-fil-A style, and I'm a big Chick-fil-A fan.
Yeah, it seems like everybody's a big Chick-fil-A fan. If you're a big Chick-fil-A fan, you should just give this review on iTunes, our podcast, a 5-star review, because we are Chick-fil-A fans here, and it's a big Southern thing. I know a lot of people in the South just like fiend over this stuff. It's
Yeah.
like gold for them, but that's a positive way to start off the podcast. A lot more fun than talking about all the players that are actually opting out of the season right now. And just to, before we name off a few big ones that are actually not going to be playing, they don't get paid to opt out. They get a $150,000 stipend, but it's taken from their 2021 salary. So that's really just a cash advance on their future salary. It's more health related, but then you look at the Patriots and like half their team is opting out, and you're sitting here like, wait, this seems more like a Bill Belichick move than it does the actual health move. It seems like he's tanking for Trevor Lawrence, in my opinion, because look at the players that have already opted out. Dante Hightower, they're a starting offensive tackle, Marcus Cannon. And mind you, Hightower's a starting linebacker. Patrick Chung, who's a starting safety. Their fullback, Danny Vital. And their offensive lineman, Najee Toran. And then there's a bunch of other guys that have also, Eddie Goldman, Michael Pierce, Laurent Davernay Tardif. He's the starting guard on the Chiefs, big guy. Starlu Tuleleli, I don't know how to pronounce his name that well, but Marquise Goodwin, who is now on the Eagles. That was a draft day move. But yeah, what do you see the NFL? How do they maintain the quality of the product? And a lot of people are saying, this season does not look so good. And how are they going to contain the virus if something like what's happening in the MLB right now occurs? If you're unaware, the Miami Marlins had a COVID-19 outbreak. Like 40% of their active roster has it, and they were just in Philly in their visiting clubhouse, and the Yankees were supposed to go and actually stay there, and they were like, nope, we're not doing that. So now they're trying to manage that whole thing, and like, how do you get these guys to test negative enough times where you're confident in putting out an actual team in a schedule that's so condensed? You don't have any time for faults, and that's kind of where the MLB messed up, was because they really swindled it down to 60 games. If they had like a 75 game season, they could have at least changed the outlook of the season and kind of maybe axe some games to compensate for something like this happening. But instead, the lack of leadership really is showing through. And the NFL, how do you manage all of these players in a physical sport, not going out, not doing this, when you guys have like guys like DeAndre Baker who are going and going to weird parties, and other people do that too. Like Ezekiel Elliott was at a party with Dak Prescott a few weeks ago. You can't like really contain all of these players, so it's really scary to think that this is probably going to happen in the NFL. And how do they deal with that? I don't know, Anthony. What do you think about this whole situation?
Well, I think that a bubble is not going to happen. I see a lot of people on Twitter saying they have to make a bubble, and it's not going to happen. The NFL, there's 80 players on each team. That's like a tremendous amount of people that you're going to try and contain in one area. It's never going to happen. So as in an ideal world, maybe we would have an NFL bubble, but we won't have it in this world. Um, and I just think that players are going to have to be careful. I think we're going to see more opt-outs. And it's this player's choice. If they have medical risks and they don't want to risk their life to play football, I get that. So they can opt out. No judgment passed upon them. But it's probably going to take a hit to the quality of play. And I'm curious to see if the number of players opted out correlates to more or less wins for teams. And I do think that, and I saw you mention this in the Slack group chat, is that the players opting out just gives more opportunities for undrafted free agents to make their name known for a team. So it kind of cancels out the fact that we're not having a preseason. So I do think that's like an interesting aspect about it, and it could be beneficial for some of those lesser known guys. But overall, I'm just hoping that we don't see any like big star players opt out and really change the landscape of the NFL. That could be really challenging for the league, and it could start to get the wheels turning on shutting the season down if star players start to opt out. But the way that I see it, there's no way that we don't have a season. It might be a shortened season when it's all said and done, but we're going to have a season, and I think there's going to be a lot of positive tests, but I think those players are just going to miss 2 games, and then they're going to be back. I think that's how it's going to work in the NFL, but it's really too soon to tell at this point. I think it's just a big I don't know with everything going on. It's take it day by day. I know that they're testing players today at training camp, so hopefully there's no negative tests, or I mean, no positive tests. Hopefully it's all negative. But moving forward, yeah, that would
Everyone's positive.
yeah, let's not wish that on the team. But I guess we'll just have to see how it goes and hope for the best here. But I think if I read correctly with the Miami Marlins, they were being very irresponsible. Like they knew that players were having
Yeah, they
symptoms and
knew.
they weren't doing
That's
something about it.
ridiculous, by the way. Ridiculous. How do you have a
They
team who knows they're positive? They know they have
right.
positive people, but they don't say anything, and they decide to put everybody else at jeopardy for what
Yeah.
reason? So that they can screw over the entire league. And a lot of businesses rely on sports, might I add, like bars,
Yeah.
restaurants, media companies, even the sports themselves. A lot of workers in the facilities. These people are
Right.
now out of jobs because those people make an ignorant decision to expose all these other people that now has translated over to the Phillies and the Yankees, even like a third party team in this whole ordeal. And the NFL's a lot worse because think about it. There's more players, one.
Mhm.
Two, they're a lot closer contact. And three,
Mhm.
they're still considering letting fans into the stadiums. So it's a
Yeah.
big issue all around with how they're going to mitigate this concern and this liability. It's really, really not looking good unless you pull an NHL or NBA and you have a bubble of sorts. Like that's the only way you can get around that type of thing. But like you said, how the hell are you supposed to institute a bubble with NFL players? They're across the country and they
Yeah.
have to be in their respective facilities. They need their training stuff. You can't just throw a basketball court up like you can with the NBA. You need a whole
Right.
football field. There's not a whole football fields laying around next to each other in the middle of nowhere. So what do? It's really comes down to the players and making sure that they know if you mess up, you're putting everybody at risk. You're going to lose a crap ton of money. And that's really the driving force here. All those players, those big name players, need to become leaders and really help the younger guys understand how serious this is,
Mhm.
and that they might not be able to see their family members that much for a few weeks. This is there's a lot riding on this season, and I'm pretty worried that something's going to happen. It's after seeing what's going on with the MLB and other leagues, it's making me think that this is going to be really, really tough to pull off. So the NFL has to be really careful in how they institute these guidelines, and the teams need to take everything very seriously. Um,
Right. And I'll just
yeah.
say with the Marlins, I think that they should be penalized in some way for that. If they knew that they were having an outbreak or they had outbreak potential and they just went on and ignored it, they should be penalized. And I think that it should set a precedent. That penalization should set a precedent for other sports leagues. Players on teams, if they're found positive, something needs to be done about it. And if something isn't done about it, a penalty needs to be passed down. And I think that's the way that you really discipline these teams in the NFL, even. And that's how you keep the quality of play together, and that's how you keep the league together. We can't have NFL teams be irresponsible like that. With such a large roster, 55 in the regular season or 53 this year, it's going to be impossible to really continue the season if teams are having outbreaks, knowingly having outbreaks, and just letting it happen. It's going to be impossible to have a full season. So teams just need to be more responsible. And I think that the MLB needs to do something to the Marlins to set a precedent for other sports leagues in terms of penalizing teams that put people at risk knowingly.
Right, and in addition to your MLB, like the actual consequences, you could say that just people testing positive is consequence enough. Losing your best players, your team takes a huge hit. You're definitely not making the postseason with some of your best players out, especially with 40% of your active roster having it like the Marlins are. They're looking for free agents right now off the street. Their entire product is going to take a huge hit, which pisses off their fan base. It loses money for them. And now they're just not making the postseason, so that's more money that they're losing off. So like the consequences are built into the entire thing. But then again, they should be in the NFL. It's a lot more worrisome. If you have a big player, like you're in physical contact with people, like you're being tackled, you're sweating, bleeding on other people, like you're gonna get it.
Yeah.
Like there's no way around it. But on to more positive things with training camp. We do want to talk about, the players actually getting there. The rookies, all the rookies have signed their rookie deals, which is really, really exciting. Everyone's a complete New York Giant, bleeding blue. I'm super excited to see what they have to offer in 2020 and beyond. And that leads me to Anthony's, first segment that he wants to get into, and that is what rookies do we think will have a first-year impact, and which ones will have more of a long-term impact on the team, Anthony? So what do you think in terms of those first-year guys that you think will really leave their mark on the team?
So first year impact, I think Xavier Mckinney is the no-brainer for that. I mean, we got him in the second round, which was so lucky because he was like a top 20 prospect. And also stay tuned because you guys voted on the community post. That's going to be the next film breakdown is Xavier Mckinney. And then after that, it'll be Will Hernandez because a lot of you wanted to see that as well. But McKinney won the votes. So stay tuned for that. And with McKinney, he can do it all. He's great in coverage, run defense, and he can even pass rush. So instantly they're going to make him a huge part of the defense. They're going to scheme plays for him to get in the backfield and make tackles or pass rush. So I think he's going to have a huge impact from day one. Andrew Thomas as well, though. I think that Nate Solder was so bad last year that the upgrade of Andrew Thomas is really going to be felt for Daniel Jones. He's really going to feel that upgrade. But in the long term, I look at a player like Matt Parrott because I don't think he's going to play this year, and I don't even think he'll play next year maybe. But after that, he'll start to develop. He should get some playing time next year, but there's no guarantee. But he's a player that I think really does have starter potential, long-term starter potential. Mm-hmm. He just needs to realize that potential. And see, he's going to need to be developed by this coaching staff, Mark Colombo, and he's going to have to hit the weight room because he does need some more strength on his body. He was playing at UConn. The competition level is vastly different. So I just think that Matt Parrott is someone I'm excited for the future. But day one, he's probably going to have little to no impact on this season.
Absolutely. Going through the rookies, we know that Andrew Thomas and Xavier McKinney are going to be their number one guys, especially at their respective positions. But just to delve on Thomas a little bit more, I wrote an article this morning about the big question mark that's over his head. Does he start at left tackle or right tackle? And that's going to be one that we, keep an eye on and watch as training camp progresses. But right now, we know he's going in, and Joe Judge made it known that nobody has a starting position yet. They have to be earned, essentially. And Thomas, there's a good chance he starts at right tackle with Nate Solder coming back. There's a chance that Solder opts out considering his child has cancer or is going through treatments. So that's a very real possibility, which would then pretty much automate Thomas into that left tackle spot. But he actually is a little bit undersized on the left side. He fits more of a right tackle profile. But looking at his strengths, his biggest weakness is flexibility. And really where that comes into play is when he's recovering after being beaten on a pass rush move. In college, he only allowed, I think he wrote today as well, or yesterday, he only allowed 37 pressures over his entire collegiate career, starting 3 years at Georgia. So he has incredible success over that time frame. With that being said, I think that it could benefit him to play a little bit at right tackle, which he has in the past, just to gain that, transitional effect if he needs to. That's what happened with Eric Flowers that really pissed me off, was that they put him at left tackle, he sucked for 3 years, and they still didn't try to move him around until the last year, and then he went to right tackle, he just wasn't ready. I think getting that experience on the right side can be beneficial. However, you don't spend the 4th overall pick to put Andrew Thomas on Daniel Jones's vision side. You need him protecting the blind side. Nate Solder gave up 11 sacks last year, 5 penalties. He was a turnstile. And I just can't watch Daniel Jones get hit from behind anymore. I think like 7 of his sacks were because Nate Solder was just so bad. It was awful. So anyway, with Xavier McKinney, we know he's going to leave his mark at free safety, and I think Darnay Holmes is another guy that has that first-year impact, especially with DeAndre Baker probably not playing in 2020. There's a good chance Holmes is competing at CB2, and there's a good chance he's competing at nickel corner. So one of those spots I believe he will earn playing time at. So I think he'll leave his mark there. But those are really the only 3 guys I see having like a significant impact in year 1. What do you think about the future and the long term of those guys that weren't mentioned in the first part of it?
Well, I agree. I think those are the 3 players that we're going to see instant impact from. And then, like I mentioned, Matt Peart, somewhere down the road we'll see some impact from him. But then we have like all those linebackers that we drafted towards the end of the draft. Those are guys that actually could have instant impact, but not in the way that you might expect. They might make an impact immediately on special teams or as depth pieces, because imagine maybe some Giants linebackers do opt out of the season. We do have depth there now. We can have these young rookies step in and make an instant impact. So, but really though, I think that players like Carter Coughlin is one that's really interesting because he was a great pass rusher in college. He has like excellent analytical pass rushing stats from Pro Football Focus and other sites, but he's probably not going to be ready to play day 1. But maybe year 2, year 3, he starts to get more snaps. He could be a pretty impactful player down the road as well.
I agree, and he actually in 2018 had a better pass rush grades than Chase Young and Joey Bosa. Or is it Nick Bosa? I always forget which ones are which. I think it's
Nick Bosa is the one that just came out of college.
Yeah, so in 2018, Carter Coughlin actually had better pass rush grades than Nick Bosa and Chase Young, which is insane to think, considering Nick Bosa was like the defensive rookie of the year last year, and Chase Young looks like just an absolute monster for the Washington football team, might I add. So I just can't get over how like plain that name is. They really went from, I feel like they should have had like a contingency plan in place. They should have been thinking like eventually this is gonna happen. Eventually they're gonna get rid of the Redskin name in our franchise, and we're gonna have something better. And they really just named it the Washington football team. Like, how do you get behind that? What's your mascot? Just like, I guess the president is the mascot.
I guess the problem was that one guy who trademarked all of the team names. But like you said, they should have had a contingency plan. They should have had those team names trademarked from forever ago, but they didn't. Absolutely. And then that guy stepped in and quickly got trademarks on all those team names, which is like really genius. I don't know the guy's name, but he was really smart. He should make a decent amount of money off of that move that he just did. I'm sure the Redskins are going to, or I mean the Washington football team, they're probably going to buy one of those team names, and that guy's going to get a quick few $1,000s for it. So good for him. Yeah, hundreds of thousands maybe. I don't know. Football teams are billion-dollar franchises.
There's another interesting thing that people do. I was reading about this guy who actually buys domain names for like big pandemic like level diseases, so that like I think he bought the one for like Ebola. So like when Ebola became a big thing, like the government had to buy it back from him because he just buys all of these like potentially like devastating pandemic names that like are existing illnesses. So it's like genius. Like, I mean, it's one way to monetize the downfall of other people, which is like really unfortunate, but at the same time, like from a business standpoint, like that's amazing idea to capitalize on. So I commend, that's at least a little bit of karma for the guy that decided I'm going to buy all the alternative names for Washington. So you have to, not only do they just being torched right now in the that Washington Post article, and they had to change their team name, but now they have to spend money on buying a new one. It's like absolute karmatic like reality. So really funny about that. But on to our next segment. Aside from the rookies, I want to talk about our quotes of the day and our facts of the day. So I'm going to give you my quote of the day, and it's a little cursing in it because it's from Lawrence Taylor. He's probably on cocaine when he said this, but absolute, I love it, and I think it really applies to the Giants moving forward. So from Lawrence Taylor, football is not a game for the weak of heart, because every day you've got 100 reasons to take off those pads and say fuck it. So big fan of that quote because it kind of applies directly to what is going on right now. The game of football is you're really risking your life every time you step on that field, no matter what. Aside from COVID-19, you could get a head injury. Think about Sterling Shepard. He's like one concussion away from never playing again. And then you have the guy on the Steelers who literally went paralyzed. So there's a lot of stories of long-term lasting effects and people losing motion in their legs and their arms. And look at Alex Smith. The guy almost lost his leg. So there's a lot of things that you have to factor in just a regular NFL game, let alone COVID-19. So I think this Lawrence Taylor quote really sums up that if, hang up those pads if you don't want to play this game, because the reality is you're risking your life either way when you step on that football field. So I really liked that quote, and I'm going to hand it over to you to give me yours.
Yeah, LT was a badass, but my quote of the day kind of relates more to the segment we just finished. It's from Xavier Mckinney. He said, "I like doing it all. I like playing as many positions as I can on the field. I just like making plays for my teammates and helping my team be successful. So for me, that's pretty much my main goal. As far as what I can provide for the team is really whatever the coaches want me to do. I always do what's asked of me, and I try to do it at a high level. So whatever I'm asked to do, then I'll adapt to it, and I'll be able to do it," which is really exciting. I mean, that's pretty much what I was saying earlier, the versatility that Xavier Mckinney has, and he's also very aware that he has that versatility, and he's ready to use that versatility to his advantage and make an instant impact. So I'm excited to see him, really, really excited to see Xavier McKinney on the field this year.
Absolutely. I mean, that's a great quote. I really want to see it apply, to his physical abilities and what he can show on the field. Like you just mentioned, he's a great player. I mean, he had 7 turnovers last year. He's a ball hawk. He's an overall just fast game player. I know he kind of had some cramps, which limited his 40-yard dash time, but I wouldn't even consider that as a factor when I talk about Xavier McKinney. His play speed is elite. The guy moves around the field. He has a very high football IQ, and he's so young. I think he's like 21 years old. So he has so much time to develop. He's going to get used to the NFL style of play, more physical, faster. And this season might give him a little bit better, of an idea of, I guess it might let him adapt more because he's going to get more playing time. He was going to be the starter either way, but since all these players are opting out and people aren't, I feel like this season's kind of like it has a huge asterisk on it, kind of like MLB season. I think that he's going to be given a lot more time to really get used to it, and going to 2021 when the season is more, just real and it feels normal again, he's going to be ready. Like, it's going to be exciting to see him develop. But with that being said, I want to give you guys my fact of the day. This is kind of funny. Dexter Lawrence is 364 pounds, and he weighs more than the average refrigerator. I thought that was funny. Just like the average refrigerator, Dexter Lawrence weighs more than that. So just think about that for a second. When you have a guy who weighs more than a refrigerator trying to bully you in the trenches, I'd be pretty scared, man. Like, you have to be another refrigerator trying to hit back to try and stop a guy that size. And with his agility and speed, he's not human, which is why a lot of expectation is on his shoulders now. Do you think Dexter Lawrence sees a big increase in year 2?
I do, because I think it's incredible that he's a refrigerator, but he moves like that. He's quick. He's fast. For someone that size, it's unbelievable how fast he really is. And I think he was already really good last year, like really solid, probably a top 25 defensive lineman in the NFL last year as a rookie. Yeah. So I think in year 2, he's going to take that step, because I think his pass rushing is only going to get better, because that's something that players, they learn as time goes on, how to use better pass rush moves, how to balance themselves, and really just get a knack for getting to the quarterback. Some players just learn that over time, and I think Dexter Lawrence is going to be one of those players. So I think we're going to see more sacks out of our refrigerator this year. I like that, though, because that William the Fridge Perry guy, that must be why they called him the Fridge. I didn't know that. But
he's huge, dude. If you ever see
Dexter
his highlights,
Lawrence,
it's scary.
Oh, I know. The handoffs from the 1-yard line.
He rocks people. Like, they hit him and they just bounce off him. It reminds me of Brandon Jacobs, or whether I think it was. I remember I actually saw this game live. Ahmad Bradshaw hitting Brian. No, who was it? It was a guy in the Jets. It wasn't Brian Poole, was it? No, it wasn't. That was a long time ago. It was I forget his name. If you know his name, leave it on the comments on YouTube, because I remember Ahmad Bradshaw hitting someone and him just being knocked out of the game. Like, he just got up and he was not able to stand. It was amazing. But it just reminds me of, you have a guy like my William Refrigerator Perry, and you're sitting there like, I can't even imagine meeting that guy in the hole and even trying to tackle him. I guess you have to go for his knees, obviously, but even going for his knees, if he hits you in like the helmet, you're done. Like, you're unconscious with that kind of size. It's crazy. Like, these guys, like I said, and like Lawrence Taylor said, this football is not a game for the weak of heart. You're getting banged and pummeled every single game, and to come back and do it again and again and again, despite what you're making, it's pretty badass, man. I gotta say, like, these guys take a beating, so it's pretty cool. But yeah, what was your fact of the day?
So real quick before I get into my fact of the day, should we see Dexter Lawrence take handoffs as a fullback on the 1 yard line? Everyone comment down below. If we want to see Dexter the Fridge Lawrence, Dexter the Hog Molly Fridge Lawrence take handoffs at the 1 yard line. I want to see it. I'm excited now. And my fact of the day, you actually already said my fact of the day, but I will say it the full thing so it provides more context. Andrew Thomas played 1,075 pass blocking snaps in his collegiate career. On those snaps, he allowed only 37 total pressures. He also has not allowed more than 2 pressures in a game since 2017 when he was a freshman playing right tackle.
Wow.
It's pretty impressive.
He's a beast.
So 3 years of just pure pass blocking
dominance.
greatness.
Yeah,
Dominance,
and like
greatness,
that's where he, comes into play when people said he has the highest floor of any of the prospects coming out of college, whether it be Tristan Wirfs, whether it be Jedrick Wills even at right tackle, Mekhi Becton. These guys, they're extremely talented, but Andrew Thomas is coming in with a fundamental approach that is superior to all of them. He is very, very good. Very good. And if he's not starting at left tackle, I would be very surprised. He doesn't need that developmental time at right tackle. He can be slotted right in and probably play better than Nate Solder immediately. And I love to see all these training videos, by the way. I know it's very like, they're just training in sweats and stuff, but it shows me that they're at least working hard. They want to win. They want to play. They're not taking... they're not even thinking about this whole virus thing and letting it hold them back. They're going out and working hard anyway and doing it on their own. That's the thing that a lot of players won't do, is they'll wait until training camp to really start getting into it. Like, these guys are working hard on their own and making sure that they are prepared because they want to win. And that just kind of tells me the character that Dave Gettleman and Joe Judge are really going for now. They're going for guys that are willing to do all the work on their own and not have to be babied into doing it all.
That's true. When you're saying this, it reminds me of all of the great workout videos we've seen of Daniel Jones, Saquon Barkley, Darius Slayton, Sterling Shepard, Darnay Holmes, even the rookie, and Jabrill Peppers. I see so many workout videos from those guys specifically, and those are really key players on this
together
team.
Too.
Exactly, together, building chemistry. Even the defenders are working with the players on offense. So just building that chemistry together, that camaraderie. It's really exciting. I expect big things from these players this year.
Who's the leader there, though? Who is setting up all of these things? Because you have to imagine that there's a guy there that's like, we gotta be coming together, because this reminds me a lot of, I'm watching Michael Jordan's The Last Dance right now, and I know I'm probably a little bit late on this, but I'm on like episode 7 right now, and the one thing that I noticed with the Chicago Bulls is that they practiced and played as a team, but really what came in practice was what translated to the court in game. You have to train so hard, and you need to have a guy like Michael Jordan, or at least a guy with that mentality, to make everybody better, that you don't take any crap. You're practicing as hard as possible because you want to play at that level. If you're just doing walkthroughs, you're never going to play at a high level. Everyone needs to be accountable. So who on the Giants, on both sides of the ball, is really stepping up and taking that leadership role? I think Jabrill Peppers on defense. I've seen him. He's ready. He's angry. He wants to play. And I think, from what I've seen, I think it's Saquon Barkley. What do you think?
My money's on Daniel Jones. I think he's the one setting it up. I think that report did come out where he set up some workouts in Texas, but I know now they're in Jersey all practicing together, or New York. I think it's New Jersey, though. And I think that Daniel Jones is the one setting it up. That's where I put my money. But Saquon Barkley's also a great leader. Sterling Shepard's a great leader. I wouldn't be surprised if any of these guys were the ones setting it up. They're all really awesome, and I'm really excited to have them on the Giants. But I want to touch on Jabrill Peppers really quickly. I'm not sure if you saw the interview that Jabrill's trainer did with the New York Post where he said Jabrill Peppers is now faster than he's ever been in the NFL. He's now the same athlete that he was when he was like a track champion in high school. He's that fast
Wow.
again. He's way faster. And his trainer also threw something out that I found really interesting. He was saying he doesn't think Jabrill Peppers' best role on the team would be at safety. He thinks Peppers should move to cornerback. He said that he gets reminded of Stephon Gilmore when he watches Jabrill Peppers. And I think that's a little bit
Interesting.
of like his trainer
It's
gassing
a
him
big
up.
jump. Yeah.
Right. I mean, Stephon Gilmore is the best cornerback in the NFL, so maybe not that, but he also
And
did
Jabril
mention,
sucked at free safety.
right, he also did mention, though, Byron Jones. He was a free
Mhm.
safety. He had his ups and downs, and then he moved over to cornerback, and now he got
He was
paid
great.
like the best cornerback in the league because he's one of the best. So it really has my wheels turning, and I'm interested and curious now to see, could Jabril Peppers make that move to cornerback, and how would he fare if he did make that move?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I wouldn't be surprised if they just threw him in at the cornerback during training camp to see how he matched up.
Right.
There's a lot of very, very fine tweaked details that you need to have to be a successful cornerback in the NFL.
Yeah.
It's not an easy position. Very, very far from that. Look at DeAndre Baker, who was like the best cornerback coming out of Georgia 2019, and then he was absolutely torched all season last year. So we see that happen a lot. We see it happen. And with Jabril Peppers, I mean, it can't hurt to give him a try there, I guess. But the
Right.
reality is that you move him and suddenly you don't have a strong safety. I mean, you have Julian Love, but how much do you really want to rely on Julian Love to be your strong safety the entire year?
Personally, I really like Julian Love at strong safety. If Jabril Peppers can play cornerback, I mean, maybe he's the guy who can, the dark horse candidate to fill that cornerback two
I
role
just don't
that
think
DeAndre Baker's leaving
I don't
behind.
think I don't think Love can handle the ground and pound of a
I
running
do.
game
I think he
year
can.
week in and week out.
I saw
If you
him
look
make
at his
some,
physique, I don't. No, I saw him make
right,
tackles
he's
too,
small. I
but
saw him
he's
make
not
some
meeting
great tackles and
guys.
run support, though.
He's not meeting guys in the hole and stuffing Ezekiel Elliott. Like Jabril Peppers
Yeah,
can do that.
that's true. Jabril Peppers can do that. And I think that's
That's
the
my
thing.
concern.
If you move Jabril Peppers to cornerback, that's what you're missing out on. He's such a great run defender, and that's what you'd be
Yeah.
missing out on by putting him at corner versus safety. He's just not going to have the opportunities to get down in the box and make those tackles. But maybe they could start to use him in that Swiss Army knife role where they put him at corner, linebacker, safety, move him all over. But also, now that I'm thinking about it, maybe Xavier McKinney just moves into Jabril Peppers' role, and then Julian Love is the free safety. McKinney is such a good run defender. Maybe he
Right.
could play in the box like that, and then Peppers would work out on the outside. But I don't know. It's just a big, interesting what if, and I'm excited to see if he does get any reps there in training camp, and maybe the Giants will start to consider it after his trainer said it to the NY Post.
Yeah, absolutely. But before we move on into the depths of the training camp and stuff like that, we're going to be giving you guys updates during our podcast weekly. We want to do more than one just to keep everything fresh and going. But we want to get you guys involved as well. So I posted on Twitter looking for some questions in a mailbag so we could feature some of your stuff. And one of them that I liked was from Brutus Gorum. Who are the 10 players that you have or that are going to be released as the team has to go from 90 to 80 players? I mean, it's tough. It's tough to say, but there are a lot of guys who are not going to make this team. A lot. So I would say that a majority of the undrafted free agents probably won't make this team, which really annoys me, honestly, because you have guys like Benjamin Victor, you have guys like Austin Mack, like Derek Dillon, Kyle Murphy from Rhode Island. There are some talented guys there that have a lot of potential that aren't going to make this team because there's no preseason. They could be put on the practice squad, and that's probably what will happen. But I'm a little bit worried to see some of these guys slip away. Like, I really like them, and I want to see them get some opportunities. But at the end of the day, when you have COVID-19 happening and you need to make some tough decisions, you have to stick with proven talent. Like Corey Coleman wins that number 4 position battle because he has experience, and you can't see Benjamin Victor or Austin Mack in the
In
preseason and
preseason,
have
right.
anything. You know what I mean? You don't have any sample size to base this off of. So Corey Coleman wins it de facto because of that.
That's true. But at the same time, I think that a lot can be determined in training camp. I mean, Corey Coleman got hurt last training camp.
That's also true.
If that happens again, then I think really at this point his NFL career might be over. He's been hurt almost every year that he's been in the league. I think the only season that he was healthy for was when he was with the Browns and they went 0-16. which is kind of a disappointment. Because I think
Hmm.
he is a player that has talent. He just never put it all together. And I think we heard so much buzz last offseason about how he was finally putting it all together, and then he got hurt again. So that was really disappointing. But is the question, who do we think is going to be cut?
Yeah, it really like who was going to be cut from 90 to 80 players, and in my
Mm,
opinion, were like right off the bat, there's so many guys that you look at and you're like, there's no way. Like Christian Angelo, defensive back,
yeah.
doesn't even have a picture on the Giants.com website, so he's definitely gone.
Yeah, I'm looking at the roster right now, and I'm seeing a lot of names that I don't even
George
recognize. But
Aston,
out of some names that I do recognize, I'll try and throw some players out there that might get cut. I think David Sills. I think people might be familiar somewhat with David Sills. I don't
yeah,
really think that he ever got a chance last year. He was on the roster, I
Case
think, the whole
Kukas,
season, but he didn't really get a real chance. So I could see him getting cut. But I think the interesting one is that the Giants are carrying five quarterbacks right now. I don't know who
yeah, Case
Case.
Kukas,
I don't know who that is.
he's
I've
gone.
never heard of him.
Northern Arizona,
Yeah,
he's a
I can't
rookie.
imagine he makes a team. And then it's Colt McCoy, Cooper Rush, and Alex Tanney. I think the Giants might keep three quarterbacks, especially because of coronavirus. It's the most important
Yeah,
position. If one of those guys is absent with the virus, then you need another guy there. So, but I think I don't know because
Garrett
Colt McCoy
Dickerson.
is like the one that everybody thinks is going to be the backup. But I have a little bit of faith in Cooper Rush. I think that he'll be
Me
really
too.
helpful with Daniel Jones getting up to speed with Garrett's offense. So I've always been the supporter of Alex Tanney. Everyone we've ever spoken to on this podcast has been like, no Alex Tanney, but I've always been like, yes, Alex Tanney, because Daniel Jones likes Alex Tanney, so why would we get rid of him? But I gotta say, at this point, it looks very likely that Alex Tanney will get cut.
Yeah, honestly, it does seem that way. I know he's kind of there for Daniel Jones. He's like that kind of father figure for him, and then in the locker room at this point with Eli going.
Right.
But aside from him, I would say like some surprise guys that could be cut. Two guys that I think it would. Okay, one of them's very very hot takey, but the other one's pretty realistic. One of them is Sam Beal. I know we haven't seen
Hmm.
him, and the reason I say that is because he is injury prone. Like I think he is dubbed injury prone at this point
Oh yeah.
with the shoulder injury. And last season, what did he have last year?
I want to say a calf, but I'm not 100% sure.
It might be whatever it is. It's
It
another
was
injury.
something. It was something.
It was something, and it wasn't a broken bone. So if it was soft tissue, muscle stuff, that's even worse, really, because those things reoccur sometimes. Um, with that being said, if he gets injured during training camp, they could easily cut him. I mean, that's just another third round pick Dave Gettleman threw out the window if that's the case.
Mm,
And considering he's missed pretty much two full seasons, he played 6 games last year, he had like a 76% completion rate against. He did not look good at all in his small sample size. He looked okay at times, but he let up a lot of receptions. He didn't let up a lot of big ones, but he let up a lot of catches. So that's kind of my hot takey one. Sam Beal could be released, and with that being said, that gives Darnay Holmes an opportunity to slide into that CB2 spot. Even Julian Love could battle there. He did play it in Notre Dame. He
yeah.
can supplement that role. So my next one is Wayne Gallman. I mean, when you have guys like Deion Lewis behind Saquon Barkley, you can easily cut Wayne Gallman. Like, I don't think he needs to be on the team. I think the Giants could easily go out and find a better player in free agency that's just waiting around. They did cut, what's his name, Joe Buck Allen. I don't think he's signed anywhere just
Yeah,
yet.
I don't
So
think so.
you could easily go out and supplement that really quickly if you let Gallman go, and he just kind of dropped off the face of the earth out of nowhere last year. No one really knows what happened to him. And then you have guys like who could be cut like RJ McIntosh, who has health issues that hasn't really produced or done anything, just kind of taken up a roster spot where a guy like Benjamin Victor could fill in. So
Hmm.
that's what I think at least.
Yeah, I actually agree with you. Wayne Gallman is definitely someone that I'm kind of predicting will get cut. And I'm also really curious to see what Javon Leake does in training
Hmm.
camp because he's really fast and
Really
exciting.
fast.
He was very explosive in college. I think he averaged like 7 yards per carry, which is, of course, not feasible in the NFL, but
He's a
he
boomer
does have
bust
a lot of
player.
speed, and he could maybe make the roster because of that, at least as a punt returner or a kick returner. So I think that he might provide more valuable value to the team than Wayne Gallman would, since he doesn't really make an impact as a returner. But Gallman is kind of an interesting case of a guy that I thought really could have been a starter on this team at one point, and then we just saw his snaps and his playing time decrease and decrease until eventually he was a healthy scratch. So I wouldn't be surprised. I don't know if it was maybe Pat Shermer wanted him to be a healthy scratch or if it was really evident to the whole coaching staff that he needed to be. So I don't know. That's definitely someone that they could look to make a cut on this year. And I also believe he was a Jerry Reese draft pick, so even less reason for Dave Gettleman to keep him around.
Yeah, and then you have like those back end roster guys that are kind of like just potential gold mines, but the expectations aren't really there. Like guys like Rice and John, for example, coming out of Simon Fraser in Canada. Guy is 6'7", 220 pounds. Does he translate to NFL tight end? Who the hell knows? He doesn't even have a picture on the Giants website. So how exactly do we expect him to become a big name guy? I mean, then again, you look at Victor Cruz. We know the stories.
True.
But at the end of the day, when you're coming out of Simon Fraser in Canada, the expectations just aren't that great, and you're probably not going to earn a roster spot simply because you don't have the experience. You haven't faced off against elite talent. He's coming like to face off against guys that are going to make him look silly. You know what I mean? Like, that's just the NFL. Like, the starting NFL players are just so vastly different to collegiate players. Even the worst NFL team would still beat the hell out of most colleges. So that's just how it is, And when you're coming from Simon Fraser in Canada, it's tough, man. And with this and COVID-19 happening and everything going on, you're really at a disadvantage already. So with that being said, I think Rice and John probably gets the axe. And then you have guys like Nico Lalos, Jaquarius Landrews, Dana Levine, Kyle Markway. Like a lot of people that you probably won't even recognize or knew or even on the Giants will probably not make that final stop.
I'll throw out a name that some players or some fans might be familiar with is Chad Slade. He did play a little bit of left tackle against the Jets last year because we had some injuries, and he came in to play for Nate Solder. He was really, really bad in that game, and I mean, that's his only opportunity that he's had to play in an NFL game, really. I think he's just been a backup for this entire time with the Giants, but Chad Slade could be another guy now that they have a little bit more depth at offensive tackle. We never bring up his name, but we bring up, what's his name? The offensive tackle. I can't remember his name right now because I'm thinking Cam Fleming. I was thinking of Marcus Cannon because he just opted out, but for the Patriots. So, yeah, you got Fleming, and then you've got Peart, and then you've got Thomas and Solder as well. I don't see Chad Slade really having a spot on this team, especially when you also throw in Nick Gates could potentially be tackle or center.
Right. And, before we start to wrap up here, I want to get over just one thing. Mm-hmm. And this is a question from Taylor Tamblin on Twitter. What the hell is going on with Marcus Golden? That's the big question that everyone seems to have. What are the implications of him signing a free agent tender, not signing a free agent tender with the Giants? So just to remind everybody, when the July 22nd deadline passed, the Giants reserved the rights, or the exclusive rights to Marcus Golden. So now they only can offer him a contract of 1 year, $4.25 million, which is 110% of his 2019 contract. With that being said, he can wait it out until week 10. And after week 10, he could sign with another team. I believe that is correct, right?
I think so, but he'd have to sit out 10 weeks, and I don't think he'll do that. Isn't today the day that he was supposed to sign that tender?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not exactly sure.
I just checked real quick. That's what I was doing. He hasn't yet, because I'm sure it would have been reported by Patricia Traynor or Art Stapleton. Neither of them have tweeted anything. That's who I checked. So I guess he hasn't signed yet, but maybe he will by the end of the day. I don't know.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything either. But he did say this morning on a Tyrann Mathieu tweet, he said that, he's kind of pissed off, but he's working hard. So I saw a few workout videos from him on Instagram, and he was working, doing his thing, getting ready for the season. But he's probably angry, man. Like, he worked his ass off. He played almost 1,000 snaps in 2019, which then again tells us a different story, because we know, okay, Marcus Golden had like 27 quarterback hits. He had 10 sacks. He, on paper, looked good. But when you look at the amount of snaps he actually had, the numbers he produced from those snaps was underwhelming, right? He played like every minute of every game. So it's like when you have a guy playing in there so much, of course, it's like Eli Manning and like the dump offs at the end of the game to get him like 75 extra yards and a touchdown. Like, those are the type of stats. Like, I know you don't like to hear that because you're a big Eli guy, but that's just the reality of, like, toward the end of his career when the Giants sucked. It wasn't him. It was the offensive line. It was the receivers. It was the defense. They were being blown out at that point. They're just kind of throwing stuff together to make it interesting at the end of the game, keep people watching. Like, those are the stats that Marcus Golden kind of had, like those just like coverage stats, just rushing, high motor, kind of people just ran into him. that happened a lot. He was very lucky in those instances, and he played a lot of snaps. So the numbers are always going to look skewed to that degree.
Yeah, that's the thing with Marcus Golden is I think he was just very average last year, and a lot of those sacks were cleanup sacks, and a lot of the pressures were not really consequential pressures. So I'm happy to have him back on the cheap deal. I do feel bad for him in a way because I think he probably deserves a little more money, and he was hoping to get a little more, but at this point, it's not going to happen for him. So that is kind of disappointing on his end, but it's kind of exciting from a Giants fan's perspective that we're getting a pretty solid pass rusher for a really cheap deal. And you also mentioned briefly something about Instagram videos, and I want to hear quickly your opinion on DeAndre Baker, his Instagram video. He's supposed to be traveling to New Jersey for work-related things only, and the very day he gets to New Jersey, he posts a video of him at a steakhouse having $1,000 steak covered in gold. I want to know what you think about that. 'Cause a lot of fans were upset with it.
I mean, okay. Look, a player can do whatever they want with their money, right?
Right.
But this is very in any other circumstance, I wouldn't give a shit. Okay.
Same.
I would be like, DeAndre Baker, do whatever you want with the money. I don't care. Blow it all. Become homeless. Doesn't matter to me. It's your decision.
It is.
However, when you're going to a steakhouse in New York City, which was just recently the biggest hit, with COVID-19, and you're going into these places and you're not giving a crap about your team when you're supposed to be reporting and you're not being careful. Like, let me give you an example of something, okay? And if you're a Yankees fan, you'll understand this. Clint Frazier did everything right this offseason. He wore a mask while he was at bat. He wore a mask while he was in the field not because he wanted to protect everyone around him, which was the primary reason, but the other reason was he didn't want to get sick, because if he gets sick, he ruins his entire opportunity of making that team, right? He wanted to make sure that he was not the reason of any bad publicity, and he wanted to make sure that he was healthy and he was ready and he was competing. Obviously protecting everybody else around him is absolutely important, and I think that's a big factor there too. However, DeAndre Baker is not doing himself any favors by going into New York City, going to a steakhouse where there's other people around indoors. It seemed like it was inside.
It was.
And, and spending $1,000 on a piece of steak, that's not what you want to be doing when you just had to pay $50,000 to pay off a witness, according to, the New York Daily News and their reports that came out about it. So in my humble opinion, I think he's a jackass for doing that. And I think that in any other circumstance, if it was just a regular season and nothing was going on, he wasn't in trouble, I would totally be like, yo, that looks like the best steak I've ever seen. But considering everything he's going through right now and COVID-19, he's a jackass.
I think that's exactly what it is. I mean, he's literally going through, he has 8 felony charges hanging over his head, and he's only supposed to report to New Jersey to go to training camp. And then he's just at having $1,000 steak. It's just, I just don't think he gets the severity of the issue, maybe. Yeah, right. I don't know. Even though I'm, at risk to go to jail for the rest of my life, I could still... it was weird. And I agree with you. If it was any other situation, he didn't have 8 felony charges overhead, and it wasn't because of coronavirus, go ahead, buy your $1,000 steaks, have 5 of them for all I care. Enjoy. It's your money. But, just with everything going on, it was kind of, almost shocking that he would post that he's doing that. Right now, given everything going on. It was just weird.
Exactly, and it seems more like an ego thing to me. He's been absolutely pummeled in the media world. Everyone's coming after him. Everyone's talking badly about him. I get the idea that, you want to do something fun and something cool and post it on social media to make yourself look cool, but at the same time, you got to think about the implications, the consequences of doing stuff like that in this climate. When you're supposed to be reporting to camp and the MLB is, outbreaking of COVID-19 and this and that, you got to think about it. You got to be smart, man. It doesn't seem like he took anything away from college, any critical thinking. I don't think he learned a single thing. It's really sad, man. It really is, because when you're going to a big school like Georgia and you're paying that much money, a normal student paying that much money to get an education, you expect people to have, a higher mentality and, just know better than to do these things. And it just says a lot for him to come out of school and not be able to think at a high level and be able to hold himself accountable and recognize that this is a bad thing. You shouldn't be doing this. Yeah. So it's disappointing to see, especially for a Giant. We don't want this anymore. I'm tired of seeing Giants be arrested. Aldrich Rosas' issues, DeAndre Baker's issues, Josh Brown's issues, Odell Beckham Jr.'s issues. I'm done with the issues, man. Like, what other team has to go through this constantly? The fans, like, we're in the biggest media market, and I know that's a bad thing for a lot of these players because we find every little thing to talk about. But the reality is, you have to know what you're getting yourself into. If you want to be a great player, we will literally, like, treat you like a king, treat you like a god if you actually perform. Like, Saquon Barkley is a god in most of our eyes, except for Willie Receipts, and I totally understand why. But I understand, he's like a god to us. He represents a success and drive and leadership, and you can be that. DeAndre Baker could be that, but you just totally missed the mark.
I agree. Yeah. I mean, what more can be said? It was kind of disappointing, but I guess it just is what it is. Hopefully he gets exonerated, though, and maybe then Joe Judge will get his hands on him and set him straight. That's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah, I mean, that's really all we can hope for. But that's it for today's episode of Fireside Giants, reviewing the training camp, what's going on. As we said previously, training camp, they're just testing players right now. Nothing really going on just yet. When things come back to normal, we will be updating and doing all the good stuff for you guys, getting as much film together as possible, and making your lives super easy, free of charge. All we hope is for a 5-star review on the podcast, and it really helps us out, and it shows us you appreciate all the hard work we put into this. Anthony grinds all the time, creating video content, written content for you guys to enjoy, and we don't ask anything back except to support us and really just hang out with us and have some fun. We want to do a lot of cool stuff in the future. So trying to build a community here. So I just want to say thanks again, and I hope that you guys have an awesome rest of your day.